Hi Margaret, how are you? Hope you can hear me properly. I'm actually getting White Pariah. She's coming on, she's going to be doing a little interview with me, basically talking about mental health and such likes. Good to see you too, Margaret, it really is. Hope your day's going well. Having a bit of a kind of rough time at the moment, but I'll get there. I've been full of the flu and such likes, and my food intake has just been off because of me feeling full of the flu, and my eating disorder has basically latched onto it. So I really need to watch. Like I say, I'm probably going to take maybe a week or two away from YouTube and things. Nice to see you here, Frankie, and thanks for inviting your fans. So, like I say, I've had a bit of kind of, oh, thanks for the likes, Margaret. I really appreciate that. Yeah, like I say, I've had a bit of kind of issues with my eating disorder because of all this. It's when been suffering with the flu, my food intake's been absolutely terrible, and I just feel like an absolute failure. But like, I'll get there. But I've got to kind of step away from YouTube to basically get myself a bit better. But I'll keep doing live streams and such likes and try to kind of give updates and things like that. Nice to see you here, Abdul Lazak. Nice to see you here, Pines, as well. We've actually got White Pariah. She's coming on shortly to do an interview with me and such like. So, yeah, exactly, Margaret. Is that I'm far better, but it's just a case of I know what I've got to do. Right, here's White Pariah. She's coming on, so hopefully I'll guest her and we'll get chatting away. If all works properly. Exactly, Frankie. You've come a long way. It isn't always going to be easy. Exactly. Recovery's never linear. It's got bumps in the road every single day, but my brain, it don't yet. Is that collapsing the other plane on your wall? It's actually a horoscope table. It's in the back of my wall. It's a big, it's a vegan wall hanger. So road every single day, but so try to see is White Pariah. Are you ready? I'll try and guess you again. I tried there, but it never worked for some reason. Nice to see you here, Gina. Anybody any questions? Fire them away. Definitely, that's what we're here for. It's just inviting guests. She says she's trying to get my stream to load. Right, man, Scottish is the best accent for screaming orders from a kitchen. With good luck to you, man, and keeping it real. Thanks very much. I really appreciate that. I do drink a lot of fizzy drinks, Frankie. That's one thing I do an awful lot. I go through about 4 litres of Pepsi Max a day. It's absolutely crazy. Like I say, I think that's part of the eating disorder. Kind of try to make you feel as if you're full, like kind of filling you up and such like. So it's absolutely crazy, but it's something I've done for a long, long time. I've been trying to cut back as much as I possibly can, but it's getting to the point. It's absolutely crazy. It really, really is. I was going to share this with you as well. This is something I seen in the news, the Daily Mail. It says, farmers fury at the animals' rights activist drones, which are scaring their pigs. Union says campaigners are distressing livestock with spy cameras. It says the National Farmers Union says activists are flying drones above their farms. They're breaking the law if the drones come within 150 foot of a person. Farmers believe it may lead to the serious injuries for staff, animals or the public. I mean, come off it. Injury to the staff or the animals or the public? Do you not injure the animals, killing them in your slaughterhouses? I mean, it says animal rights activists are using drones to spy on farms, causing distress and possible harm to livestock, farmers say. Causing distress to livestock. The distress to the livestock are being caged up in little pens for all their life so you can fatten them up and kill them. That's what's actually distressing. It says the National Farmers Union says campaigners are flying remote control aerial machines above its members' property for surveillance. The activists are breaking the law if the drones come within 150 foot of a person or a building. Farmers believe it may lead to serious injuries for staff, animals or the public. There has been a particular problem at pig farms and abattoirs where protesters have been demonstrated and tried to disrupt business. Drones have also been used to observe chicken and dairy farms and find badger traps to sabotage during the cull. Farmers worry animals may be alarmed by the sight and sound of a drone. Pigs will charge as run as a herd when they're scared, destroying electric fences and escaping onto the roads. I mean, oh, come off it. When are they going to get the connection that the cruelty is them that's doing this? They're saying that animals have been distressed because of drones and they're going to get injured. I mean, come on. Let's be real here. They say chickens can panic, mistaking a drone for a bird of prey. They will flock together and if stressed and pushed, they can suffocate. The NFU's Robert Weaver said farmers are reporting a lot of problems with drones. Animals are unpredictable and just don't know how they're going to react. There are some who are deliberately using drones maliciously, while others have no thought of the dangers. Using drones maliciously, they're actually trying to show the cruelty that's happening to the animals. That's what they're trying to do. So, like I say, it's absolutely mental. I say they just don't get the connection whatsoever. Frankie's saying, Tommy, I'm the same. I don't think my coke, I get headaches. Yeah, I get it quite a lot. I get like migraines and such likes as well. I'll try and guess you again, White Pariah. I don't know why you can't see me. Can everybody else see me properly? Yeah, you might need to try refreshing it, White Pariah. That's maybe what's going on. I don't know what's... I'm on the laptop as well. I don't know how that's working. Frankie says it. Oh, we're here at last.
Hey! Sorry, my computer's being really difficult, as always.
It's typical you now. It's like this all the time. Sometimes the sound's out. Sometimes you can't guess people. It's got that many problems going on with it.
Yeah, I think they've done something to the Flash plugin recently, I think, and that's made it go wrong. How are you doing anyway?
Yeah, I've had a bit of a kind of had 2 weeks or so. I was suffering with the flu and such likes, and basically I wasn't eating properly, and I think my eating disorder has latched onto it a bit. As you well know, it can do that. It basically any kind of, if you leave the door ajar, as they say, the eating disorder kicks it in, and it's done that. So I'm just going to have to get back on it and fight through it.
Yeah, it's really there's not really words to describe, but I've had it recently where even just the last couple of days, like I missed one dose of amitriptyline, which I take for pain. I'm not even taking it for depression. And that one day of missed dose, and that was because my GP screwed up the prescription. Yesterday I felt like I was coming down from ecstasy or something. It was like your brain is just fried because I hadn't slept for 2 nights, and then because I didn't eat, there's me thinking, oh well, not me, but the disordered thoughts come back in, and it makes you think, wow, I feel like I could do this again. I want to take the opportunity whilst I can. And it's weird, isn't it? Especially when you've come such a long way and those thoughts can seem like they're really far behind you, but they're always there in the background.
It's terrible. And the worst part about me is my psychiatrist, she doesn't believe in medication. She believes that you've got to fight the illness yourself. So I've been taken off. I was on amitriptyline like you were, and I was on olanzapine as well. She took me off all them. She basically believes that I've got to fight the eating disorder thoughts. So it's 100 times harder, but I can understand what she means, that basically you've got to be in control of it. But I feel that medication definitely has its place.
Yeah, I think it's dangerous to say that you just don't believe in something, because it's just a stepping stone. It's just like, if you can't walk, you would use a walking stick rather than saying, right, get up and take 10 steps across the room without. It's about your quality of life as much as anything else. You're living life right in this moment. And so why would you want to waste that if you've got some tools that can help you to do that the best way you can?
Exactly, 100% agree with that.
I've just found I wrote an interview for Tommy about, I don't know how long ago that was now, silly amount of time. So I was just finding it to see if I could start asking you any of the questions, and it'd be good if anyone else has got any questions they want to ask us. That would be really cool. I'm trying to.
Jenny is asking there, she says, sometimes I think medication mixed with CBT is good. Cognitive behavioural therapy, yeah?
Yeah, I think always, if you can have a combination of talking therapy and medication, that can be really useful, to just because the problem is with all these things is the longer it takes, the worse physically you're going to be, because you've been like pushing your body to the limit for that much longer. But for me, CBT doesn't work, but I don't think that's anything to do with CBT not being good for a lot of people. It's more to do with my particular what's the word? Psychology, not the word. The physical stuff that's going on inside my brain is different. So it doesn't work for everyone, but it's really good to have that combination of things, I think, definitely.
Malgrazat is asking as well, what's your opinion on the efficiency of cognitive therapy? Yeah, that's basically the same. I think it's really, that's one of the kind of most important things, is the cognitive therapy.
Yeah, I've just had about 30 weeks of cognitive analytical therapy, or CAT for short, which I thought was quite apt, which was quite good. It was different to CBT. You don't really talk about what to do in the moment. It's more about recognizing patterns of behavior, where those come from, and how you can stop them before they start happening again in the future. And that was really helpful. But I think it was more that it was my therapist was really good, and she was very intuitive. She was also really good at recognizing that I could see a lot of I've got quite a big insight into what's going on with me, but it doesn't mean that I can solve it. It just takes that sort of third party that's a little bit removed from the situation to say to you, you're doing really well, but that doesn't mean, we're not out of the woods yet. You've got to keep doing this work.
Exactly.
So it's a bit scary having had 30 weeks with her, and now there's nothing. And I've got one follow-up booked in about 6 weeks.
See, I don't get anything like that. They actually tried me on the adult Maudsley mantra, but my eating disorder specialist, she stopped it within a few weeks, and they don't do anything with me at all. I see my psychiatrist like once a month. I'll just go in there and she'll basically just sit there and say, how are you? And then it's, oh, we want you back into hospital and such and likes, and they're not wanting to give me medication. I just don't know. I feel I know more about eating disorders than they actually do, being quite honest.
Yeah, that's a big problem, I think, with people now. Now that we've got Google and the world is at our fingertips, it's really easy to find out, especially if you've got time on your hands, which you can't really do anything with because you're sort of consumed by the way you're feeling about it. So it does lead you to go looking and talking to people that have similar experiences. And I do think that people psychiatrists specifically, are so busy seeing patients quite a lot of the time that they don't necessarily have the most up-to-date information, and it must be difficult for them to, they've got however many patients to see in a day, they can't read all of those notes in advance and remember who those people are necessarily. Obviously once you've been seeing them for a fair while they probably do, but it must be difficult for them to remember like whereabouts you are in your treatment and how you're doing. So it's like, I don't know if you've had this experience, but every time I've gone to see a psychiatrist for the first few times, they've asked me the same questions over and over again, and some of them are like quite insensitive. Like even last time I saw my psychiatrist, she's been treating me for over a year now. She said, "Oh, and does your mum do this, that, and the other behaviour?" And I was like, "Well, no, she died in 2014," and she was really apologetic. But and it doesn't matter to me because it's, you know, I can handle it. But it does make you wonder if you were someone that found that really difficult to hear, the last person you would expect to be that insensitive would be the person who's meant to be helping you to come to terms with things.
Yeah, well, I've even found sometimes my eating disorder specialist, she comes in and she says, I mean, you know that people with eating disorders, they hate hearing things like the word fat and such. Like, she came in and she started saying, "Oh, this is great, this is Friday, this is our fat Friday." She says, "We'll be eating chips and such likes," and she says, then she starts talking about fat people and that. I thought, how insensitive you are when you don't realise that these kind of things your eating disorder latches onto. And her example is basically, "Oh, you know what you've got to do, you've just got to eat or you die." I mean,
if only it were that simple.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think I don't really know that much about the Maudsley protocol, but I remember going and sitting in the park that's next to where the treatment centre is, and just seeing lots and lots of really underweight people walking around with friends or family or whoever it was that was with them. Yeah. And it just didn't look like, I didn't think it was an inpatient for people that are really like seriously in need of fluids and liquid food straight away. But I've never heard, I don't know anybody that's been there and had a successful time of it. I know people that have been there for other things like bipolar who've said that they've been brilliant. But again, I think it's just down to the person and who you end up getting. So, you know, like what the psychiatrist before the one that I'm seeing now, initially I thought he was great, but then he was really pushing me towards taking pregabalin, which is this drug it's not actually licensed to be anti-anxiety, but the way that he sold it to me, and this is not me just being dramatic, he actually said to me that he had a patient who had a broken spine and had been unable to walk, and he started taking pregabalin and then he was magically cured. And I remember thinking at the time, well, if I wasn't going to question you because you're in this position of, you know, you're supposed to be the doctor, you know this stuff, then I would probably just go along with that. And I did in the end. He banged on about it so much that I ended up giving in and taking it, but it didn't do anything for me, and it just added yet another thing to kind of complicate things. Yeah. But he was just rubbish. He was obviously on some power trip and it wasn't my best interest that he had at heart at all.
Margaret Zatta's saying there, do you believe medication is a place in treatment, or is it a complex gimmick and even harmful? I believe it does have its place, but it can be harmful because a lot of the times many of the medications bring on things like psychosis, and they can even sometimes they can like rapid weight gain, and especially with people with eating disorders, when they start getting really, really fat and such like, it's because of these medications. That can be an issue as well, but you can't unless you put on weight, obviously. That's part of it.
I don't think there's any, for me, I don't think there's any case for someone saying, well, you know, we're not going to do anything else until you've put weight on, because you obviously won't have the capacity to, it won't be effective. And I don't think that's necessarily the case, because the last time that I relapsed and was really ill, I was still working full time. I had a family, I'm looking after my child, perfectly able to function. So it wasn't like I was at a place where I would just be sitting there, you know, glazed over or anything. Yeah. And I actually don't think, because my disorder isn't necessarily caused by depression or a chemical imbalance or anything like that, for me, medication wasn't the answer this time around, but it has in the past. It has been something that's helped me sleep. I think that's the only thing that it's been helpful for is to allow me to get enough rest so that my brain is able to deal with therapy or whatever it is that I need to do. But yeah, I mean, it does have a place, but some of it is gimmicky. And I think a lot of times the doctors are they're not necessarily, they haven't read up on this medication. You know, when you go to the GP and they open that book and look up what drug, and I just think, right, hold on a second. I know, and I know that's because there's just so much stuff. You know, the human body is really complicated, but we do kind of trust these people to know their stuff, and they can't know all of that. It's just too much stuff for one person to know.
Yeah, exactly. Frankie says as well, I notice a difference when I miss a dose of amitriptyline, but I don't know if that's just in my mind. I used to get that quite a lot. I would become like drowsy and things, and I think it's basically because your body's probably used to these drugs, and you're when you miss a dose, obviously, it's like a drug addict, if you can imagine it.
Well, that's what happened to me the other day. I missed 2 days of work just because my GP had put the script under review, so when I'd requested it hadn't gone through. And just, I'm on 100 milligrams a night, which isn't a massive dose, but it's still... Yeah, so I've been on that for, I don't know, over 2 years now. And so when I didn't take it for one night, and then I felt fine for the 24 hours after that, I didn't sleep at all, so I was really like wired. But I went to work as normal, and then it wasn't till waking up the next morning, and I'd taken half a dose that night, and that just totally screwed me up. And it was more, so when I was in bed at night, I wasn't sleeping properly, but I kept having sleep paralysis. So in my dream, something really terrifying was happening, and I was trying to scream, and I was trying to move, and I couldn't, so I was paralysed. And I remember that experience from, withdrawing from different drugs, but it's medically quite dangerous to withdraw suddenly from something like amitriptyline that does affect the receptors in your brain that much. And that's one of the issues with amitriptyline and putting on weight, is that it blocks some of the uptake of some of the neurotransmitters that affect your appetite, so it makes you feel like you're hungry even when you're not. So, like for people with eating disorders, those side effects are not ideal, because no matter how much the drug is making you feel more balanced, it's adding to the problem rather than taking away from it.
Yeah. Jean A says there, how do you think going vegan helps in recovery? Does the revulsion of meat? Well, my opinion on that is it doesn't matter whether you've got a US standard diet, you're vegan or whatever, it's getting over the issues that's in your head. The food is only part of that, and you've got to deal with issues in your head. Being vegan will never help you in recovery. It's about what works for you, because I always say that for some people, going vegan in recovery is probably the worst thing that they can do, because if you're demonising certain food groups, your eating disorder is going to latch onto that. So I always say that you should just be, as it says, just vegan, enjoying all the things that you did before in a US standard diet, and that's my take on it.
Yeah, definitely. And I didn't become vegan until, it's probably about a year ago now, that I officially came out as vegan. I hate that, but I was a bit worried about doing that at the time because of the whole, what was going on with Freely and Enduring Rider and all that stuff.
Yeah,
and I didn't really want to be, I didn't want to be connected to that. And I also knew that people would question why I was becoming a vegan and say, oh, you're just doing it because, it means that it's easier for you to cut certain foods out, which I understand. And I know that obviously there's a case for saying that for some people, even on a subconscious level, that is part of why they choose to do it. But for me, a lot of my safe foods, which are foods that you're pretty much okay to eat because you know what's in them and they're familiar to you, and there's 1,000 reasons why they could be on that safe food list for different people. But the things that were on my safe food list were these particular type of crackers, which had milk in them, so that meant they were out the window. And there was a few other sort of snack things that I would eat. I would eat like over long periods of time, so they were very low calorie, but very high kind of crunchy, or it took your mouth a lot of work to get through them, but for very few calories. So
yeah, exactly.
So I suddenly couldn't eat any of those things, and I have ended up putting on a lot more weight than I was expecting through that, and the fact that I'd kind of, as part of my recovery, I tried to go back to the gym and swap some of the cardio that I was doing for doing weights. And in the end, it's all just pushed my body too far. So I'm not in great shape fitness-wise, and I've put on a lot of weight because I was giving myself, you know, when you're in recovery, sometimes you get those phases where you just go, whatever, I'm just going to binge because there's no point. Unless I can lose all this weight right now, I'm not going to bother. You do kind of get into some black and white thinking sometimes. So it becomes this issue of like, if you get up in the morning and you think, well, I'm not going to eat today, and then you eat something, you think, well, I've ruined it now, so I might as well just eat everything. And you have to eat it all so you know it's all not there anymore, because otherwise you think about it. It's quite difficult to explain it if people that haven't had that experience.
I know, exactly.
But it's all consuming, isn't it? It's like you can't, literally can't sit in a chair and think, I know there's something in there.
About what are they advising on? Do they lack experience? What is it they might be lacking?
Do you think doctors could be? I think often doctors, especially GPs, they are not too clued up about nutrition generally. So if I go in there and say, because I've had really, really low calcium and vitamin D, so I'm on like, I think the recommended dose of vitamin D in a day is 800. That little U sign, I never know how you pronounce that, but I'm taking 26,000 doses of that at the moment to get my vitamin D back to normal. And every time I go and see them about the results of blood tests, they'll say, well, what's your diet like? And then they'll start saying, well, you need to eat meat and you need to drink milk. And I'm like, I'm a vegan, I don't do that. And some of the looks that I've had from GPs are priceless. Like, it's that they can't conceive that you might be able to use supplements, make sure that you're doing a research. And like you and I, we know what's in our food. It's kind of comes as part of the package if you have an eating disorder. So it really
become like a dietitian yourself. You know the amount of calories in food, you know the vitamins, you know the minerals, you know everything. It's an all-consuming thing.
Yeah. I remember 20 years ago, back in the 90s, is that 20 years? Yeah, it's probably a little longer than that, but we had like a book that listed all the common foods with their calorie, and that's how you would check everything off. They were like Weight Watchers or Slimming World or something books that would have like lists of things. So it was all really, you have to write loads of lists of what you've eaten and then work it all out with a calculator. Now you could just scan a barcode with LiveSum or whatever, and then it tells you all this stuff. So, but we don't need that because we've been that calculator for so long that it's like part of our. You know, the first thing I do when I pick up something in a supermarket is look on the rack for what's in it. Yeah. Thank you, Dazzling Frankie just said I'm very pretty. Thank you. I've only just got out of bed actually. I did put makeup on, but I've slept in because I felt so rubbish the last few days. Just reading. Oh, Malgazata. I think psychology is still developing. My son was diagnosed with Asperger's some years ago. Now they call it all autism spectrum. Yeah, actually, I'm being assessed for Asperger's in next month, which is bizarre because people see me as quite a sociable person, and I'm pretty good at like communicating with people. I don't have a problem holding a conversation. But for women, it can manifest in a very different way, and often it's misdiagnosed as something like bipolar or borderline personality disorder, which is my current diagnosis, which I've never really felt like it fitted me that well. So I'm going to see what happens. I don't know what I think at the moment. I think people tend to question whether they might have it, go and look at like all of the sort of female traits, and there's a lot of really good specialist people that have put alternative lists of traits up on the internet that you can go and look at. I've lost my train of thought now. That's one of the symptoms. I'm sure we all have.
I get that quite a lot. It's like you know exactly what you're going to say and the words just don't come out.
Yeah, exactly. It's really frustrating, especially for me at work when often I'm sitting in a meeting and we'll be going around talking about whatever it is that we're supposed to be updating people on, and then it comes to me and I'm just blank. I've been trying to listen so hard that I'm not listening at all. It's quite embarrassing. But yeah, so I think lots of people that wouldn't necessarily have been diagnosed with autism or Asperger's are starting to be diagnosed later in life, and especially for women, things like hormone changes can trigger just periods of life where you find that, because like you've in your early 20s and like your late teens, you're busy kind of living your life and it's all crazy and it's more likely to be chaotic at that stage. Then you get through to later life and things calm down and you have a daily life, you have a routine, so it's kind of easier to manage things. But often it isn't till then that you realise that the way you're managing things is so essential for how you are, that might be an issue. So yeah, it's quite interesting. I mean, even if they say, no, you're completely neurotypical, that's fine, at least I'll know, someone's asking, this time around vegan life, what's Asperger's? So it used to be known as like high functioning autism. So there was a scale of severe autism down at the bottom to high functioning Asperger's at the top. And it used to be that autism can come with like learning disabilities, so people might have lower IQ, and Asperger's was seen to be there's no effect on the IQ of that person, they just have the sort of social and communication difficulties and different ways of thinking, whereas now they're kind of putting it all into one big spectrum. And actually another really common misconception about that is you hear people say, oh, we're all on the spectrum, but that's not the case. The autism spectrum is a separate thing. So neurotypical people on one side, like what we would say normal, well, that's that sort of thing, and then there's the autism spectrum, which is like a discrete set of points between one end and the other. So it's not true to say that we're all on the spectrum. It is true to say that we all, to some degree, will have traits that are similar to autistic traits, but they won't, but they won't necessarily be things that cause you any issue on a daily basis. So that's kind of the difference. There's a lot of talk, especially amongst activists, that it's not necessarily helpful to people to say, oh, if they say, well, I have trouble with X, Y, and Z thing, and then you say, oh yeah, I have that. It's like it feels kind of belittling sometimes. It's like same thing with eating disorders, Tommy, isn't it? Like someone says, oh yeah, well, I went on a really extreme diet once. It's not the same thing. There's a world of difference. Mismatched Socks is saying, there's a high-functioning Aspie at my work, but he's not a nice person and says horrible things about women. I don't think being autistic should be an excuse for his bad behaviour, and I've complained to my boss about him. People can be assholes whether they have autism or not, and that's the problem. It's like, that's probably nothing to do with him being autistic. And unless he's actually saying, I'm rude because I'm autistic, I wouldn't naturally jump to the conclusion that he's using that as an excuse, because it's not an excuse. But is worth bearing in mind that for people that do have autism, it's harder to learn those social rules. It's easy to be misunderstood because you're not, like sometimes I will make a joke and everyone will look at me in horror, and it's not that I've said anything really offensive, but it's just like not appropriate somehow. Same thing with like politics at work, of people saying read between the lines. It's not always obvious to me. I'll go away and work it out afterwards, but it's just that it doesn't come naturally to people always to know where the line is.
We tend to see the world differently from what we do, and the things that was probably basically like water off a duck's back to us, they'll see as a personal attack, and that's one thing I've noticed quite a bit. There's actually a person who all about that I made the video about. Obviously, he's been doing a lot recently, basically stalking and bullying people, and he's using the excuse that his brain is rewired differently from everybody else, and he's saying, oh, but look, I'm disabled, but he's not disabled. He's very, very able actually, but like I say, it's people with autism, they're really, really high functioning. When they focus on one subject or anything, they're cleverer than me and you put together. And
yeah, I mean, it's there's big organisations now that specifically run programs to employ people with autism, because this isn't, the thing is, we also need to remember this isn't the case for everyone with autism. Not everyone is a savant, not everyone has like a special skill that makes them a virtuoso, but most people have special interests at least, which means that they'll spend hours and hours researching something, and they'll be very knowledgeable about that thing. Doesn't mean they can necessarily impart that knowledge anywhere else, but if you're thinking about like big organisations where there's a lot of IT going on or a lot of numbers stuff, there are people who are more suited to that work. And actually this touches upon another friend of ours who is, very insists on comparing things like policing to the ability to go into politics. And I hope someone will watch my video.
Mr. Mazard.
Yeah, Mr. Mazard. I'm not frightened, so I'm just getting my drink. You know, anyone that of his claimed intellectual caliber is really that misinformed is quite terrifying. But I mean, it doesn't really matter because we can choose what we do. It's not up to him to tell us what we are and what we're not. And he'll only lose from it, if anything, because he won't be benefiting from having people around him that can give him a different perspective. And that's one of the things that that's one of the things that is a reason why employers like people that are neurodiverse, is because you can come to a problem and look at it in a different way and, you know, bring a solution where otherwise everyone's just been scratching their heads about it. Oh God, we've missed loads of questions. Someone's obsessed with Heath Ledger.
Yeah,
I don't know who that was.
What he's talking about.
Oh, right, okay. So Malgazata said, we used to believe people with Asperger's lack empathy, but the recent science suggests the opposite. Yeah, that's true. I mean, there's a lot of debate around what empathy actually is and whether it's even useful to us, because oftentimes, and actually this is very relevant to eating disorders as well, because a lot of times people will think that because they had an eating disorder once, they can talk the talk, they know everything there is to know, they know everything about your experience, and they will push that onto you because they think in their minds, yeah, well, I got through it, so why can't you? So I think that's one of the reasons that people consider those with mental illnesses to be weak, because they don't understand how one thing could happen to one person and it could happen to someone else, and those people would react completely differently. One person might get post-traumatic stress disorder, the other person's fine. But people with Asperger's and autism are very, I think the science suggests, very empathetic, and to the extent that it's actually painful. And that's why, you know, maybe that's why people respond differently, because you're feeling it so deeply that it makes you sensitive, and then you're more likely to melt down, or, you know, have to leave the room and take some time out because it kind of triggers certain feelings. But there is more science to suggest that the autistic spectrum disorders make you less able to recognise your emotions. So again, that's difficult to deal with because you can't deal with something unless you know what it is.
Frankie's saying, I'm having a day today when I'm struggling to get up and shower. What motivates you to get up when you have these days? I think we can all get days like these. Lately I've been getting into the point where I'm not even motivated to do anything. I used to be in the past, I would be doing things like over-exercise and such like. Now I don't want to exercise at all. My morning, I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'll be going to bed, let's say 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I feel that that's just something that we've just got to push through, and motivating yourself. Basically, you've just got to know that what you're doing is for your health benefits, and you've got to try and fight through it.
It's that catch-22, isn't it? Because the times when you feel the least like you want to get up and do things are the times when it would probably help the most. Yeah. Now, I've had exactly the same issue. I don't know if it's because the weather, well, I'm definitely affected by the weather being rubbish. Like, I need to get outside and have fresh air and feel like, you know, that you forget that there's a world outside the door sometimes.
That kind of seasonal affective disorder is a
but I think we all have that to some extent. You know, humans are not necessarily, we don't all leap up with joy at the prospect of going out for a walk when it's pissing it down with rain. But, you know, like, I try to bring things inside that I can do. So, like, I've got this, and this is nothing to do with Durian Rider before anyone thinks it, but I've got a bike that I bought and it's on a trainer and it's in my study, so I can just go in there and get on it. But I've found that even that just difficult because I don't have the motivation to do it. I've not been really making that many videos recently because I haven't felt like I'm I just can't be bothered to do it. And I've got a few people who have requested me, you know, that I cover certain topics, and I really need to do that because, you know, that's kind of the purpose for me doing the channel, is to try and, you know, help people understand what mental illness is and what it's not. But I think doing things like this help, because naturally I would think, oh my God, I said that I would do this thing yesterday, but now I want to flake because I just want to hide and not deal with it. But because it's you, and because I want to talk to you, and I want to, you know, like, I said that I was going to do this ages ago, and then just totally flaked on you. It was important to me to do this, and I'm really glad that I have now, because it's really cool to talk to you, and people have asked great questions. I don't really have any advice for how to do that. If you feel demotivated, sometimes it is just about crashing through that barrier and going, right, I'm going to at least force myself to sit up in bed, put on my socks, and, you know, move to a chair. Or getting dressed, I think, helps. Even if you're not having a shower, just putting on clothes instead of pajamas, it sort of changes something in your outlook somehow. Why is someone saying 666?
They were asking, I don't know, I don't understand that. 666, the sign of the devil.
Probably referring to me, I imagine. Someone asked, oh no, it's going so quickly. Oh, Magzata said work should offer solutions, counselling, for example. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I certainly push for where I work. We did a huge mental health campaign, and part of that was, you know, I went and spoke to the people that do our health insurance, because we're lucky enough that we can pay for health insurance through our wages, and, you know, offered to them ways of getting feedback from the people that were using the services so they could improve how that worked, because it seemed to be one of those things that, like they say, it's available, but when you're really in a bad way and you're vulnerable and you haven't got the energy to push for things, they've got to make it so it's accessible to you at that point, rather than making it really difficult to actually get, and, you know, like, the support that you need. And I think, you know, businesses are starting to realise this now. It's just that it's only the very, very biggest employers that are getting that far, and that needs to, that sort of culture change needs to trickle down a bit and start affecting, you know, every business. And then, you know, if you're working for a really small family-run business, the rules will probably be different again, because they can't cope with people being off sick. They can't provide health insurance. So,
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, Ash Miguel says, change your life. Goodbye. Well, maybe you read that and do the same. So I'm not very good at keeping up with the questions.
Yeah, the chat's kind of slow at bits in here, and you have to keep scrolling up. I'm having bother catching up with it as well.
Let me get my question. I just want to make sure that if we haven't touched on anything, we can always do this again anyway. We could do like a proper video and a Skype call or something. Oh, that's one of my questions, was how do you feel when you first wake up, both physically and mentally? So we kind of answered that one.
Yeah, when I first wake up in the morning, I just feel, sometimes I feel like crying. It's because you think to yourself, this is another day I've got to fight through this eating disorder, and it just basically consumes you. Even when I go to bed at night, I'm thinking about even a week in advance of what I'm going to have for food and such like. So, and if I've ate X amount of calories one day, I'll say to myself, all right, I can't eat that tomorrow because that'll be more calories.
Yeah.
And I've even got into sometimes where I'm regimented in my food. Like, I'll have a certain meal on a certain day, and it's all on the same days each week where I've got to have these meals on a certain day. It's a crazy thing.
Yeah, I eat the same dinner every night, and I've started making that for lunch as well. It's ridiculous, really, but I think that in some ways is, again, could be linked to autism spectrum disorders, because it's about control and ritual and stuff, but it just makes it easier, doesn't it? Like, if you're eating something you know, then that fits into your kind of template of how you want the day to be. And if the day turns out to be that way, then at least you've kind of achieved that. So it's definitely about a control and feeling, you know, you have to feel like you're comfortable with what you're eating. Otherwise, it does create extra worry afterwards.
I find what I've noticed myself, and a lot of people have kind of touched upon this, is since I've became vegan, and I've done this all along anyway, but I fill my plate up with an awful lot of vegetables and some like tofu on the side, and I feel that's another way of me trying to convince myself that I'm eating more than what I probably am.
Yeah.
And
I'm exactly.
Another thing I done quite a lot is I get tomato ketchup and I absolutely smother my dinners in tomato ketchup. I've never understood why I did this. This has even happened before I became anorexic. I don't know if this is. They do say it's an anorexic behaviour, but I don't really know why I do that.
I suppose similarly, slightly different, but my standard dinner and now lunch as well is like loads and loads of veggies, like piles of veggies, with like spicy tomato sauce and then zero noodles. So that's like that will be, it's a huge bowl of food.
I do that, yeah.
And I can't do it without the sauce, and it has to be like. So I did go through a phase where it was just like stir fry sauces, but that became too salty. And because I'm not eating very much variation outside that saltiness was a bit too much to handle. So now I'm back to like bog standard sort of Italian based sauce with loads of vegetables in it. And I don't get sick of it, or at least I'm not conscious of getting sick of it. And then lunch was just a jacket potato, and I make it so it's literally so crispy on the outside that it feels like a biscuit. So I was a bit frightened when there was that news story recently about eating burnt toast gives you cancer. I was like, oh great, because I literally make my jacket potatoes so that they're black on the outside. But I've stopped doing that now because I felt like it was too many carbs, and yeah.
See, I've suffered with things like OCD. That was well before I had my eating disorder. I would do things that I would have like 14 showers a day. I was constantly changing my clothes. Even now, the OCD is really, really prevalent. I do things that I've got to do everything at a certain time of day. I've got to have my clothes sitting out at night for the next day. I've even got to go to the toilet at a certain time of day. I've got to have my meals at the very same time each day. I've got to walk the dogs at a certain time each day. I'll even, when I'm out walking, I'm counting steps, and that's part of the eating disorder, the numbers type thing as well.
But I mean, it all links into the same thing, doesn't it? It's all feeding the same sort of psychological need. Definitely. I'm lucky in that sense. I've never had proper OCD, and I've got rituals that I do, but they're not obsessive to the point of it being an impairment to me. I mean, only in the sense that I can't, like, even if, so my dad came to visit me last week, and even if I'm cooking for him, I'll cook his dinner first, and then I'll have my same dinner that I cook completely separately. And we don't sit down as a family and eat. I will sit at the table with my son, but I won't be eating when he's eating. Again, sometimes people question your ability to parent because of an eating disorder, but he eats at like 4:30. Who eats their dinner at 4:30? So most grown-ups wouldn't be sitting down with their children and eating a full meal at 4:30. So I do try and I make sure that my behaviours don't rub off into him, but I'm conscious that it could happen.
That's what I was going to say to you. How can you go about that? Because a lot of people say that when you've got an eating disorder and you've got children, your eating disorder rubs off on them. But that's far from the truth, because we do everything we can to make sure that anybody around us isn't affected by our eating disorder, because we wouldn't wish this on our worst enemy.
Yeah, exactly. And, I talk to him about food a lot, and we talk about why he likes food, what foods he likes. He's not limited. He doesn't eat a vegan diet because my husband's not a vegan, and obviously I can only decide. It has to be you can't decide unilaterally as a parent. You have to have the other parent's involvement in everything, obviously. So he's, and if he grows up and decides that he doesn't want to be a vegan or does want to be a vegan, that's his choice completely. I do, but yeah, we do talk about food, and I tell him about foods that I like, and I make sure he sees me eating when I am eating. But it is difficult, and it was very difficult when he was a baby, when he just first started eating solid foods, because often he would leave loads of the foods, like it's just part of the course with babies. And I found it really difficult to have that sitting around and not eat it, because I've got a real problem with waste. Like if there is something that's about to go out of date, even if I don't want to eat it, I will just eat it because I can't throw it in the bin.
Yeah.
So I have to be really careful about managing, how much food we buy, when we're going to eat it, that kind of stuff. It is difficult, but you can only do your best. And my mum had, I believe she had eating disorders as well, because she would serve up her dinner on a Sunday for like a roast to everyone first, and then she'd have like a plate full of peas at the end. And then just before she died, she went on this diet where she was only eating 6 bananas a day. But no one apart from me ever really twigged that was an issue. So it was like it was there.
What happened there? I don't know what's happened there. Dropped for some reason. Try and see if I can get it back. Signal cut out. There's a wait Pariah back. I'll try and get. Don't know what's happened there. Here we go again. We'll get it back. Typical unit. Failing halfway through. We're back.
Sorry, I again don't know what happened. It was just, it suddenly started asking me for a broadcast selfie, and I was like, I'm in the middle of talking here.
It's done that quite a few times. It seems to just flicker out. It came up on the top of my screen. It says broadcast disconnected. And then it goes, and we're back.
Yeah. I need to start doing broadcasting again and making more videos. I think for a while there, I didn't really have a lot to be angry about or worked up about, but obviously some of the responses that Isaac left from my video and underneath your video and underneath his own video, it's just like giving me that little bit of a kick up the arse to actually start making some more content.
It's getting to the point when I go into mod vegans chat or anything, when I comment below, he's immediately attacking me in the comment section at anybody that he's associated or friendly with. It's just crazy. And then he puts out videos saying, I'm never going to debate you. Well, I've never debated him, but he seems to keep attacking me and keeping this going for some reason. I don't understand him. He's a very intelligent guy, but he's clearly got some mental issues going on that he's not talking about himself.
Problem is, IQ and EQ are two separate things, and he may have a high IQ, but if he can't adapt that for real life, then it's not really any use. And he can criticise, me saying that his term mental disability pretty much just shows how behind he is in his knowledge, because there is a huge difference between dyslexia and autism. You can't just say everything that affects the brain is one gigantic mass of the same, and all of it renders you incapable of doing this, this, and this. Actually, if you want to go into politics, you need to be someone that people trust, and you need to be able to put your message across in a way that doesn't wind people up and that gets people on side. Surely that is the biggest skill that someone going into politics of any kind is going to need. So if you can't get other people on side, no one's going to vote for you. It's just not going to happen. And I don't understand how he doesn't get that. So say that again.
I says that's been proven with Donald Trump lately. The people inside and such like.
Well, Donald Trump is again someone with a high IQ who is still a dickhead. So what can you do? Exactly.
And this thing, he's trying to build this 2,000 mile long wall across the Mexico border and things, and obviously want them to pay it as well.
Yeah, everyone's saying your sound is bad. You sound like a Dalek, so I didn't really get much of that last bit.
I'll try and put the headphones in, maybe that's...
Trump's son Barron is autistic. Yeah, I've heard that bandied around. I don't know how accurate that is. I don't know how accurate it is that Trump's son is autistic. I don't know if that's just people's assumption from his behaviour. But you know what? He's a kid, and he had to get up at the inauguration ceremony in front of the entire planet. And I don't know how most kids would respond in that circumstance, but there was certainly no way that I would have been able to look at a camera.
I've seen as well that he's trying to bring in this waterboarding, which I think is absolutely crazy. And I don't know how that's going to work out, trying to obviously interrogate people with waterboarding, because...
Yeah, you can't really... We all see each other from afar, really. Like, one of the things that I saw... Sorry to keep banging on about this, but I just think it's important that it needs to be said. I don't want to avoid the issue. But... mismatched socks, I'm not offended at all. I just think, so what I was going to go on to say is that Isel said, you're crazy, so your behaviour is stupid, or you're just stupid, or something along those lines about me being an idiot or my behaviour. But he doesn't see my behaviour. All he sees is my videos and the things that I write. I doubt he's ever read my blog, but what behaviour are you seeing? I'm not on the internet every day shouting people down for not matching up to my little perfect vision of what I think the world should be. So yeah, and I understand that people are saying that Barron, who is Trump's son, has been acting weird, maybe, but honestly, he might just be an anxious kid. Although he's Trump's son, imagine the crap that comes with knowing your dad is Trump, for Christ's sake. It's like, you can't tell really from his behaviour whether it's actually markedly different to others, or whether it's just the amount of crazy that his life has become, or his life's pretty much always been, but at least he's been sort of hidden away with his mum, and now he's been dragged out in front of the world, and people are saying, oh, he's looking away from the camera. Well, maybe his parents do imply that, and I'm not saying that he isn't, I'm just saying it's difficult to tell, and I would never like to sort of diagnose anyone on the basis of seeing them on TV. I feel awful for him anyway, but even if he is autistic, God knows what's going to happen when you've got that guy as your dad, who's literally incapable of understanding anyone else's point of view, or why you would do something for somebody else as opposed to because it works for you. I hope for his sake that he gets whatever support that he needs. God, imagine Melania's got to kiss that guy sometimes, which is like, I can't even imagine how traumatic that must be. But she can't have too much going on if she married the guy, unless he is wildly different in person. And I'm not, again, we have only seen the way he puts himself across on camera, but because that is as a complete asshole, I'm not going to say anything about his behaviours necessarily, but the things that he says are just, everybody knows that it's ridiculous, right? It's not just me or you or whatever. We can all see it. It will be interesting the next few years to see how it goes. See what happens, whether he stays in office or whether he gets indicted for something. You still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Cool. Your sound's still a bit dodgy.
So what's going on with my sound?
I'm just about to tell what you're saying. I'm just trying to follow questions.
I can try and refresh it and come back, and we'll do the questions. Maybe that'll be the best idea.
Yeah, sure.
I'll do that. I'll end it and come back. Right,
okay, cool.
So I'll just end the broadcast and refresh it and come back, guys.